Hi everyone, I've got my new little girl all varnished and I put her back on her body, and I ran into some very strange and different things, which it's not unusual when you're reborning a doll to run into things that you have never experienced before. So I thought that I would show you her varnish and show you her finished product. She's 21 inches long and 6 pounds 1.9 ounces in weight. She's weighted with glass beads and polyfill, and she has her own little hairstyle that I love on her. She's got little flips on each side. I never liked this hairdo on any of my dolls except for her. She's got a little curl on the top of her head also. This is her hairdo. This is the way that I'm going to be curling her hair all the time because she just looks adorable in it. I've got her little toothbrush. Oops. I've got her toothbrush right here, so I can show you her bangs a little bit, and you can flip her hair any way you like, really. It works better when it's wet. So you guys already know that she's got two-tone blonde hair because I bought her used, and I had to add some mohair, and I added the color that I had, which was lighter than her hair, which was almost a strawberry blonde, but not quite. So anyway, I just finished with her Genesis matte varnish, and I wanted to explain all the little nuances of this particular kit. I have reborned the kit with these limbs several times before, so I'm very used to these limbs. But I wanted to let you know the peculiarities of these particular limbs. One of her arms and one of her legs had thinner vinyl than the other side. And since I had to bake the matte varnish twice, I was afraid that the thinner vinyl might collapse, or I've never really experienced anything like that before. So I decided to fill the limbs with polyfill before I varnished her, and leave a little bit of a gap on the top so that I could still fit her limbs on the drying rack while they dried. And baked her twice, and this time I baked her once with her arms this way, and then the other time this way, and the same with her legs in the opposite direction, which is something that I had never done before, but I decided to give it a try. And what I discovered, which I had not discovered before, was that when I turned her limbs, particularly her legs, down, she had already had her toes glossed. So her big toes, when I turned her feet down with her toe nail facing the cloth, I had to redo her gloss on her two big toenails because it stuck to the cloth once it heated up. This is air dry, Genesis air dry gloss. I've never run into that before. So that was rectified very easily. I just removed anything that was rough, and I just went over it with the Genesis air dry gloss again. So that was that. And then I had to put her back on her body, and I got rid of the string ties, and I used cable ties. And I noticed that when I put this leg on, when I held her straight up and then put her down, this leg turned in like she was pigeon-toed. So I said, okay, that isn't going to do. So I have to redo that leg because it was already too tight for me to take off and use the same cable tie. So I tried to get the leg off while the cable tie was still on, and you know what happened? And this is another thing I've never run into before. This doll came with plugs for her limbs. I have never used plugs before, and what happened was I was putting so much pressure on her limb to get her out of the body with the cable tie still on, that what happened was the plug created a vacuum. This must be the leg that's thinner, but I'm not really sure. I'm really not sure. Her leg collapsed. The vinyl actually collapsed. And when I took the leg off and took the cap off, it came right back. So it created a vacuum and it made the vinyl collapse on itself. That was something very, very strange. And so that's a possibility. These caps are very tight. So it actually made a vacuum. Yes, it did. So the other thing that I wanted to point out was when you put your doll together, make sure that the limbs fall in a natural position before you tighten up the cable tie. In other words, you want the legs to be able to fall like this when she's sitting down, and you want her arms to lay naturally when they fall by themselves. You don't want her elbows to look like they're turning front too much, or like her arms are turning this way too much. So you have to play around with it before you tighten the cable ties. So, yeah. And then another thing I wanted to point out was when you have already rooted your doll's hair and you've already weighted the doll's head, and you want to put the doll together with cable ties, and you take the string off and you put the cable tie through, make sure that when you tighten the cable tie, if you don't have a neck ring, don't tighten it too much so that you can't turn the doll's head, okay? She can still turn her head easily without a neck ring. I don't like neck rings. But if it's too loose, her head will come off if you handle her in the wrong way. So, and also make sure that if your doll has longer hair in the back, that when you tighten the cable tie, the hair does not get stuck inside the cable tie. Make sure you kind of take all the hair out before you tighten it, and make sure that the polyfill all the way around is hidden before you tighten it, because sometimes the polyfill will stick up on one side in the front or in the back when you tighten the cable tie, and you don't want that to happen either. So I didn't intend on doing a tutorial with this little girl, but there were so many nuances with her kit that I just had to do it. I really did. I was hesitant to matte varnish her because she does have a little bit of flaky skin, kind of, from the previous artist and the way she was stored improperly for years. Her paint started to kind of do something funny, and I didn't want to matte varnish her because I was afraid it would look worse, but it doesn't. And she has that beautiful matte varnish texture on her now. So I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I did. Her paint is sealed, it's protected, it's got a texture. So the next thing that I had to share with you guys was her name. I have been batting around her name forever and a day. I wanted to call this little girl Flory, And I had a story behind that name. And someone else in the community chose that name for their baby. And I said to myself, I don't know if it's right for me to take a name that's already taken, but let me tell you the story of Flory. When I was a little girl, there was an old woman that lived across the street in this tiny little bungalow. And I used to go and visit her. And her name was Florence Cummins, and they used to call her Aunt Flory. She was about in her 80s. She had bad arthritis. She was bent over. She had a big hunch on her back. But she had a chord organ, and she taught me how to play it. And I got pretty proficient at it. And little did I know that I must have been about 10, maybe 11. Little did I know that I was playing hymns. I was raised a Catholic and I didn't know anything about hymns. And she had me play these beautiful hymns. And also, every time I went over there, she would be sitting on her couch reading her Bible. And I had never seen anyone read a Bible before. So that intrigued me. And also, she had a picture of Jesus' face over her bed. And she loved the Lord. She loved the Lord. And this little girl reminds me a lot of Flory, Aunt Flory. She has the same color hair. She has the same color eyes. And she has the same strange ears like all Pat Moulton sculpts have. At least some of them do. The ears are a bit different on this kit. And Aunt Flory, she used to sit on the couch and I would sit next to her and I would play with her ears. And she would allow me. She loved me. And so I wanted to name this little girl Flory, but since the name has already been taken, I decided I was either going to go with Sally or Bunny. And I thought, I like Sally Field a lot. She's one of my favorite actresses. But she doesn't really look anything like Sally, except for when Sally played Gidget. Does anyone remember the show that Sally Field played on, Gidget? I do. I remember that show. I used to love that show. But then I thought, this little girl, she has to be a bunny. She looks like Bunny to me. I already had a Bonnie, and Bunny is the next closest thing to Bonnie, so I think I'm going to name this little girl Bunny, because she's my little bunny. So please welcome Bunny to my nursery. She presented me with some brand new challenges, and I worked through these challenges just as much as I worked through all the other challenges for every single kit that I have reborn in my life. And it's over 100 now, and each one has its own thing going on. It really, really does. So I hope that this has been helpful to some people who want to begin the journey of reborning. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing the story of my Aunt Flory. And I hope that you like little Bunny. So she wears 0 to 3 and even some 3 months. She's a bigger baby. She's rather chunky. So she will fit in the same clothes that Ella and Bernadette wear. So I'm pretty happy about that. So anyway, that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. And if you are, thank you so much. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And I thank you for watching. I'll see you guys real soon.